Hello, people of the internet. Welcome back to TK is Outlandish. I am Teresa, and over there is my husband Ryan.
Hi, everyone.
So, specifically on this channel, if you are new, what we do is we review Outlander, talk about it from the aspect of a book reader, which is what I am, versus a TV only viewer, which is my husband. I specifically focus on how we take this book, A Breath of Snow and Ashes, and turn it into season 6. And if you are returning, thanks for coming back. And just to let you know, the reason why we're doing this is because last Sunday there was no new episode. There is a new episode this Sunday, April 24th, I think is the date.
Sounds
Now
right.
there's no new episode on May 1st again. And I had said way in the beginning, I had a feeling they would take at least one break or 2 breaks. They were not going to show all 8 weeks in a row. So the finale of season 6 will at earliest be May 8th, and maybe even further. So taking this little break, this little mini Droughtlander, I guess you can call it, we were just going to go over what I think will happen in the next 2 episodes. And I'm going to warn you right now, if you are a TV only viewer and you have not read the books, so when I say a spoiler, I'm spoiling the books. I'm probably going to spoil the TV show. So warning, this will be full of spoilers. So I'm not going to tell you not to watch, but if you don't want spoilers for the TV show and you have not read the books, stop watching.
So this is definitely going to contain book spoilers, but since we don't know exactly what's going to transfer over from the book to the TV series, although we can be fairly confident on some things, some predictions that we think might be spoilers might not come to pass, but some probably will.
Right, and that's what my focus is. I really like how they take the medium of a book and turn it into a TV show. So I kind of want to look at the patterns that they've been doing so far from this season and previous seasons of how they've done stuff like combine characters, cut out certain storylines. There's TV only storylines that obviously I had no idea what's coming because it's not in the book. So anyway, so shall we head into it?
Yeah, let's talk about this first scene you got here.
All right, so first I'm going to go over a couple of storylines, not major storylines. These are storylines that were hinted at in the season, that are in the books, that I wonder if they're going to bring them in or not. So the first storyline is Lizzie. Now, this screenshot is from the season 6 trailer. As you see, Lizzie is running from the house. So, thinking of one of 2 things. The first thing is Lizzie's father. If everyone remembered way back in season 4, Lizzie ended up with Brianna because her father had to basically sell her as kind of a bondservant. I would
Yeah,
technically she would be
yeah, a servant.
um because she would I think she guy wanted to marry her or something, but whatever. So her father, his name was Joseph Weems, is how you pronounce her last name. He ended up in the book. He ended up being a servant, a bond servant in America, and Jamie ends up paying off his servitude bill. I'm not sure exactly how you word it, and brings Joseph to live at the Ridge, and he kind of gives him the responsibility of taking care of the Ridge when Jamie's in Wilmington, or or if he's being the Indian agent or
And,
whatever. So
and Jamie did this knowing he was Lizzie's father?
yes, he purposely did that to bring Joseph to Lizzie because Jamie's that kind of guy. And and I can't remember. I want to say it's in the middle of season or book 5 that this happens. Of course, it didn't happen on the show. So I think Lizzie's either running to see her father, but I'm not sure with everything that's gonna obviously we'll get to that. Obviously, happen in the next two episodes. I don't know if they'll have time for Jamie to go get Joseph Weems. But it's
Let's
either that
while we talk
or
about that, I'm gonna zoom in on this real quick, just because let's
Mhm.
take a look at her face. Does it look like she's excited or fearful? Like I don't know. She kind of looks
I
like
don't
she's
know.
running from something rather than she's running to something.
Okay, so that's the second thing that I think would
Right.
happen,
That's
which
just my take on that.
well, that was my original take because another storyline. So we remember back in episode 605 when she was stricken with the malaria. And this is I found this kind of strange too because in the book she lives with her father in a cabin and apparently she lives by herself in the cabin on the ridge. And I feel like that would be something unusual in the 1770s for an unmarried young woman to live by herself in a cabin. Do you
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
was odd?
yeah. That sounds odd. I don't
Mhm.
know if it would be a red flag or anything, but I mean they've certainly called people worse for less.
Right. So we later find out, and I was never a big fan of the storyline. So Lizzie ends up pregnant, and she's not sure which one of the Beardsley twins is the father. And we find out
And we thought
that,
Malva was bad last episode. Ooh,
well,
Lizzie
this
stepping
is
up to the plate.
well, here's the thing. So she tells Claire what happens is she whatever ointment Claire has for her malaria. And remember, like malaria that struck her, and she was like feverish. She was out of it. She was kind of like not as bad, but she was kind of like Claire when Claire was feverish, like really out of it, right?
Mhm.
And so Josiah Beardsley is rubbing this ointment on her, and next thing you know, they're doing it. And I'm like, I don't know if that's consensual. Would that be consensual? You're kind of like high with fever, kind of
I,
delirious.
you know what? They've played fast and loose with that word this entire series. So I don't know.
So that's the first thing I wasn't super cool with. And then the reason she doesn't know which twin it is because she thinks that she had sex with Josiah. But if you remember in 404 is maybe met, or maybe it was. No, I'm sorry, not 404. And in season four, I can't remember if it was season four or season five. We met the twin Keziah, who was deaf because he had ear infections with his strep throat, continuous strep throat or whatever.
Was that in
But
four? I can't remember if that was 4 or 5 either.
yeah, I can't remember. But he still has a really hard time hearing, so he's kind of loud. And Lizzie thinks she's having sex with Joe, and she goes to talk to him, and he realizes he can't hear. Realizes it's Kezzy. Is that consensual? You think you're having sex with one person, it turns out to be the other person, pretending to be the other person?
That is
I think
not
that's about
consensual
as.
by any definition.
I think that's an SVU episode right there.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
So, so I was never cool with that storyline, and this is when I read it like 2 years ago. I do not think TV audience viewers are going to be cool with this storyline. Ryan, TV only viewer, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I give all the stuff that happens here a large hand waving pass because this happens in the 18th century, um, and a lot of weird things happen in the 18th century apparently. Um, that would not be cool by today's standards. So it's when I say I'm not cool with something, I'm not cool with it by today's standards. Um,
Well, if you're not cool with it by today's standards, will TV viewers of 2022 be cool with it? Is my question. I feel
well,
like they would have to.
right, right. So it's another. It's are people gonna say, well, this is an uncomfortable thing to talk about, or something that's really wrong by today's standards? But back then, it was kind of it's wrong, but it happens.
No, back then I don't think they'd be a bunch of Catholics and a bunch of Presbyterians. Do you think Tom Christie and the Fisher folk are going to be cool with that?
Now they're definitely not gonna be cool with it.
Yeah, and I know like the writers say like Jamie's such a progressive guy. Like, he's really not that progressive in the books. He's really not. He's much the Highlander guy. He's like not cool with it. He's like, you're gonna marry one of them.
From what you've told me, he's very understanding, is a better way to put it. He's understanding, but not progressive.
Right. He's he has compassion for people, but I think he goes along a lot with what Claire says because like he's still not real sold on there being such things as germs or vitamins. But he trusts her because he has witnessed her go through stones and predict the future. So he's kind of practical in that way. So anyway, it ends up that Lizzie, because Jamie's like, I don't care which one you marry, you're marrying one of them. And so he hand fasts. I can't remember which one he hand fasts Lizzie to, and her father, who in the book, her father's like very very like distraught, like devastated, and so the only way they can tell them apart is that Josiah has a brand on his hand, the T for when he's a thief. And so Roger is going to be a minister. He's been acting like a minister. And so Jamie handfasts her to one of them. I forget which one. And then they go out, burn the other one's hand, go to Roger. And Roger unknowingly marries her to the other one. So now she's married to both. I'm like,
So they
whatever.
go and like pull like the prestige trick. They like disfigure each other to like fool the other
Yeah.
person or to fool Lizzie
No, to fool. I mean,
or to
no, to
fool
fool
Roger.
Roger. To fool Roger. And Brianna. Brianna's there too. And Jamie. So whatever. So, but it's kind of like a side story, and it happens before Malva accuses Jamie of getting her pregnant because when they come to the house to say my daughter's with child, I can't remember if it's Jamie or Claire that says it, but one of them says, "Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that going around these days." So anyway, so that's storyline one that I'm not sure what they're gonna go with. So storyline number two. Back in what episode was Give Me Liberty? 504. I didn't even mention this when we reviewed 504, but we have the whistling man in the jail. If you don't know who that is, I'm everyone's all the fans are 99.9% sure that that is Donner, who, if you remember, was the Indian who was in Lionel Brown's gang that kidnapped Claire. And
He's the one who admitted she found out he's a traveler as well.
So he was whistling a tune from the future, which is a really interesting tune. I forget the actual name of it, but it was a British military march originally. So Claire would have known it from then, from being in World War II. It was written in, I think I read 1917. And then it was also featured in the very popular movie Bridge Over River Kwai, which I can't remember. I think it came out in the early to mid 50s. So likely Donner would have known it from the movie. And it still kind of fit in with British colonial times too. So it was very interesting. Song choice. But you see, he has a gem, so he can travel back. In the book, he does not know that gems allow you to travel. He ends up somehow, I can't remember why, he's at Joe Costa's at the barbecue for Flora McDonald, and that's when he finds out. He does try to steal, he's a thief, and he does try to steal something, but it's not gems, because he doesn't know about the gems yet. Brianna and...
Interesting. So they're going to bring in that he does, assuming this is Donner, they're going to bring in that he knows about the gems, and it looks like he's actively trying to get back using a gem.
Yeah, he's the one that stole the gem from Flora McDonald from her necklace.
Right.
Missing world, I think. And there was something else. Okay, well, we'll get to that. So not really sure what if Donner if they're going to go back to Donner, or if that's not going to happen until season 7. So
I feel like they've got to revisit that at least a little bit, because otherwise that's just a huge, like, just lob that thing out there, and you see
take the
him.
land.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, maybe we don't know it's Donner yet, but obviously some dude from the future whistling, future tune, holds a gemstone in his hands in jail. That's a big thing to just basically mention and then leave it alone for the
Yeah,
entire season.
right. So then we go back to now the Donner thing, not so much the Lizzie thing, but the Donner thing is going to wrap up into the Lizzie or the Melva storyline in the end, possibly the end of season 6 or maybe the beginning of season 7. So, as we remember last episode, Melva accused Jamie of getting her pregnant. And then Claire, so we were, and I had said this in the comments of our last video, we had wondered, like, why would Claire knock herself out when she sees Melva coming? And I had read, and this makes sense as a theory, that maybe she thought Melva was a hallucination because she had been having hallucinations of Lionel Brown before, and she heard his voice. She didn't see him, and when she looks out her door, she sees Melva. So she could have assumed it was an hallucination, and she locks the door because she doesn't want to see Jamie, or she doesn't want Jamie or like Mrs. Bug or Brianna or anyone to come in while she's huffing the ether. So she just thinks it's a hallucination, and she's like having a panic attack.
That's an interesting theory. I could buy that. I could buy that.
Mhm. Because she's kind of like not looking around for Melva when she gets up, or you know what I mean. However, I do think we saw in the preview for next episode, Alan, they find her over Melva's bloody body holding the dead unborn baby, and apparently that's what it
Yeah,
looks like in the
that's
trailer.
real unfortunate.
Yeah. And I think Claire is going to feel guilty because I think she's going to realize that was Melva and she might have been able to save her.
Had she not dosed herself with the ether.
Right. Or if she would just had realized it was really her and not a hallucination. So I think maybe this next episode it will be like who killed Melva, and I think there might be the second storyline. Maybe the Lizzie storyline will be like the second storyline because what's about to happen is the Browns, remember Richard Brown, Lionel Brown's brother, who said to Jamie, I'll do what's necessary when the time comes, shows up with his committee of safety, but they have to wait a little while because Jamie's men, like Fergus is a newborn with Marcelly, so he's gone. Ian has to be gone. I don't know if you remember the Lindsay brothers. I forget Kenny Lindsay and Murdo. They're around. You might not know their names, but they're one of the men that Jamie's always has around. Who else? And John Quincy Myers. We haven't seen him this season, but he's like a mountain man, a trapper. He comes like if he's around, he went to rescue Claire at the end of season 5. So
So Jamie has a lot of people at his command that could very easily put up a fight against that committee of safety.
Right. But not only do you have the committee of safety, you also have the Fisher folk still think Claire's a witch. Think that she killed Melva and cut out her baby now. Think that she resurrected old Granny, I forget her name, Crombie. Remember they thought she was dead and she comes to life and then she dies again.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only the Browns and the committee of safety, it's like the villagers. And so there's Richard Brown. They're coming to take Claire to take her for trial, and that's why I think it's gonna happen. It's not gonna happen in season episode 607. It'll be 608 because in the book, Roger's away. He decides he wants to become a minister. So he has to go, I forget which city he has to go to, but he has to go to like seminary and be ordained or pass some tests, do some studying or whatnot. And Bree goes with him. And then Ian's like, I forget where Ian is, but none of his men, it's like the committee of safety waited to make sure that there was no one to defend them, except maybe Arch Brown, who's like, what, in his 70s. so so it's kind of like, they ambush them pretty
Yeah.
much, and they want to take Claire to be trialed for murder.
So is that where you think this scene comes from?
Yes, this is Claire with her gun. As you see the group of men in the background, that's the Browns in the committee of safety, and then the next scene. And then that they showed that in the trailer, and the voiceover is like talking about the revolution. Well, this is not the revolution. This is Jamie and Claire being holed up in the house as a shooting of them. It was like a shootout. And so Jamie and this is why I said, why don't they mention that there's that obituary that their house is gonna burn down and they're gonna die? Because there's actually two episodes. There is an episode in the book where it's the date that they say they're gonna die. So they move into, where did they move to? They stay in a different, I forget whose house they stay in. Because they're like, well, if the big house burns, we won't be in it. And something does catch on fire, but they catch it and turn it out. And they're like, oh, we averted it. So they're not really worried about the fire anymore. And then so they're holed up in the house, and then I'm trying to remember exactly. Yep, here they come with the torches. So I think this is the Browns, or I should say the villagers. Like, it's like the villagers, it's like Frankenstein, the villagers with the torches. And so Claire says, what's going to happen? Jamie's like, they'll probably wait till nightfall and set the house on fire. So there's that.
That looks like an exciting episode. So you think that's all going to happen in 607?
I do, because I think 607 is going to end in a cliffhanger for two reasons. Number one, it's only 8 episodes, and season 7 is 16 episodes. The other reason is because I feel like season 1 did not end in like a cliffhanger. Like, they were on the boat, but it could have I feel like it could have kind of ended and been like, wow, it's a nice series, one season series. Season 2 definitely ended on a cliffhanger. Claire finds out Jamie will survive Claude, and she says, I have to go back. Season 3.
They're going to have to, I mean, for 608, if 608 is the last episode of this series, they have to spend the majority of the time in that episode wrapping up, not every storyline, obviously, because they have to leave something for the next season, but wrapping up a lot of the storylines. Because you can't just leave every one of these storylines open for another year.
Right. Well, the other thing too is, I wonder if 608 will be a longer time, like a longer episode in general, like an hour and a half. Because I think season 2, the last episode was like an hour and a half, was a 90-minute episode.
Yeah, we've had a couple of those.
Yeah, I think that last episode of season 1 was like that too. Season 3, they like end in America. Season 4 was definitely a cliffhanger when he was ordered to capture and kill Murta. Season 5 wasn't really a cliffhanger, so I think they're due for a cliffhanger. So I think there's 2 ways that this can end. So what happens in the book, and this is the big spoiler, people. So if you're waiting, if you were like, this isn't too full of spoilers, this is the big spoiler, peeps. So Richard Brown will not leave without Claire. Jamie says, you have to take me too. They do not trust, for good reason, do not trust that Richard Brown will keep them safe. And so Tom Christie volunteers to go with them to assure their safety. And
Hmm.
so a lot of things happen. So what happens is they have to find a magistrate to try her. And so this happens a little bit later also. Um the last episode we saw, it was 1975. And I'm trying to remember. I think it was 1976 in the book. So it's even more turmoil, and they can't find a magistrate to try her because there's so much turmoil. The magistrates are like, well, I'm not touching it. Like loyalists, Tories, patriots, like they're not touching like trials. And they don't want to take them to Cross Creek because that's where Jocasta is. I forget. And they don't want to take them. I don't think they want to take him to New Bern. So they end up taking him to Wilmington. And there's a scene. I hope they put this scene in here because I think it's a great scene where the villagers come out. Like the word has spread all over the state that Claire Fraser, because Jamie Fraser is a well-known man. And the word has spread that she's on trial for murder. So like these villagers, a bunch of kids come out, they're like throwing rocks at them, and one of the kids hits Claire in the shoulder with a rock, and Claire like loses her shit and just goes after this kid and starts beating the crap out of him. Like it just triggers her, and she starts like beating him in the face, and Jamie has to like cover her with his body because people start throwing stuff at her. So after that happens, the next day or a couple days later, they're in a tavern, and all of a sudden they ambush Jamie, and they hold Jamie, and they take Claire. They just take Claire, and they separate them. And
Who is they?
so,
Who is they in that situation? The
the
villagers?
Browns.
Oh, the Browns.
No, no, it's still the Committee of Safety, like Brown and his men. And so this is when this whole time, sorry, I forgot to mention this whole time, Ian is tracking them. Ian, I think he comes back, he finds out what happens, and he's tracking them. So go to the next picture. So I still don't know. Originally I thought that this was the story of Sun Elk, which turned out to be the actions of the character Sun Elk. It wasn't the same character, but it was the same storyline. The storyline with Emily and Ian, and she married, I can't remember his name, it started with a T. But it wasn't technically Sun Elk. So I thought that this was the story of Donner talking about, or no, I thought it was the story of Sun Elk. I don't know who this is. Maybe it's Ottertooth again. I don't know. All right, so go to the next. So, this does wrap in. I'm sorry. Go to the next picture.
No, we're good. So yeah, this is one we've discussed a lot in the past. We're still not quite sure what's going on here.
Right. So it looks like they're running along the beach. The first episode, when we saw it on the big screen, we said it was Jamie on the white horse, of course, Ian, John Quincy Myers, and like 3 Indians.
Yeah, the big red coat on one of them really looks like the Sun Elk.
It's not Sun Elk.
That guy that we keep calling Sun Elk that apparently isn't.
Yeah. So I don't know if Ian goes back to get help to rescue Claire again, and John Quincy Myers happens to be there. It looks like they're in the Outer Banks. Maybe it's Wilmington, because there's this whole storyline that I think it's not going to go into this much detail because it gets a little like they go to Wilmington. The governor's there. He sneaks out his wife who's pregnant and dresses up Claire as the wife, and they sneak on a boat, and I'm like, okay. Like, and Jamie finds her. So go to the next.
Yep. And this next one, so here are more beach scenes. This is from the season 6 trailer.
Yeah.
Again.
So there's some sort of fight, but does that look like not Sun Elk again?
That looks like someone else. The red coat's not on that guy.
Okay, so apparently there's a fight or some kind of skirmish between the Indians and some tri-cornered hat wearing fellas.
Yeah.
But it wasn't on the beach in the book, so I'm not sure exactly um exactly what happens there. So the only thing I can think is that they go to rescue Claire because another big spoiler. Tom Christie confesses to killing his daughter Melva. So Claire's kind of like released. Next pick. So I think this scene from the song from the opening credits is now I had always thought it was Claire going to visit Tom in prison. But then we're like, maybe it's Donner? Can't really tell. Or maybe she goes to see um Tom in prison and Donner's also there because it's Wilmington.
Yeah, yeah. I brought
So
up
I'm not
prior
sure.
to us filming, I brought up the picture of Donner's hand. You know what? I can actually, I'll bring it up here, just kind of side by side, and we'll take a look at them real quick. So we have the gem hand and the jail hands. Uh, it looks a little bit different. I don't know. Maybe
Yeah.
the hands are a little bit more worn in the gem pick. Um,
Yeah, and it looks like he's wearing like those kind of not like fingerless gloves kind of thing that like Claire wears. It looks like he has like a coat on, whereas Donner is kind of like living like a thief, kind of like ragtag. So I don't know. So I was thinking it was Christie with Tom Christie, then I was like, well, maybe it's Donner, but now I'm thinking it is Tom Christie.
yeah, I'm thinking it's probably gonna be Tom.
So big spoiler again, and this is why I cannot hate Tom Christie. So he has not killed Melva. Claire doesn't believe him, and we find out that Melva is not his daughter. When he was in Artsmuir, his wife and Alan, who was young, who is his son, was living with his brother and sister, and Melva is his brother's daughter. So
So Tom admits to killing Malva, but he didn't. He was just taking the
he did
rap
not.
for Claire.
He was taking the rap for Claire. No, in the book, he says maybe he should have killed her,
Huh.
which I don't know. Maybe it would have been hyperbole, but he said, and this is why I think we had that thing about maybe Melva's like literally psychotic. She has a like a mental illness,
Yeah, and she might have been
and
kicked out of the previous town or something. That's why they left.
right, and Tom thinks that his wife is a witch, but they're like, well, maybe she had a mental illness too, but obviously it wasn't recognized as such back then, and he didn't know. Like didn't he say he found her like dancing naked in a pentagram? So I don't know if there was a pentagram involved or not, but if someone was dancing naked nowadays, you'd be like, there's something not quite right there.
Yeah, I might not call that person a witch, but I might be like, you're odd, odd person, odd.
Odd. Okay. So then we find out. So like when you hear that, speaking of consensual, when you hear that Tom Christie's wife's or Melva is his brother's daughter, do you think that relationship was consensual? We have no idea. I'm not telling you what it says in the book. It doesn't say.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Like we don't know. That's the
Hmm.
first thing I thought when I read it, but I mean, it doesn't really say one way or another.
Yeah, and Tom was in prison with
Mm-hmm.
no real hope at the time of getting out.
Mm-hmm. Well,
So
his
she might
brother
have.
was married. I should put that. His brother was married,
Oh, there's
so
that too.
and so his wife's name was Mona, and so Mona in the book, I don't know if it's the same way she died in the TV show. It's going to be, but she was hung for killing the brother. So
Okay, this is a whole lot of killing going on.
yeah,
So the so his wife had a kid with his brother, and
Yes.
the brother's wife killed the brother.
No,
No.
Mona killed the brother. Tom Christie's wife killed his brother.
Okay. Tom. Okay. Okay. So Tom Christie's wife killed his brother, and then his wife was hung as a witch.
No, she
Or,
was hung for killing the brother. Witches are burned, Ryan. Get with that program.
well, they can do both. They like doing both. It's a spectacle.
Yeah.
This is all very
You know,
confusing to me. I'm gonna have to see it in action.
so I think you will. So you know what's kind of funny though, and I noticed this in the book, is when they're trying to take Claire to trial, and Claire's like, "Well, there's no evidence," and Jamie's like, "You've never been on trial before, have you?" And she says, "You know I haven't." What's wrong with that sentence, Rye?
What?
What's wrong with that question?
Um. Uh, how, how do they not remember that? That was a
It,
pretty.
hello, do we remember Cranesmuir, Leary, Galus? I don't understand how like nobody when no I did not read this book when it first came out. I don't remember when it first came out, 2008. I don't know, but how did nobody catch that? Be like, what do you mean you've never been tried before? Do we not remember Cranesmuir? I know it was a long time ago, but you still hate Leary for it. So I mean, you should remember.
Yeah, I mean, maybe like they've never been tried before. Asterisk as a in the United States, maybe, but that's not even real plausible. I'm just making things up here. That's no, that's nah, nah.
So yeah so but he says that he recognized in Melba that he was the same way and that she was the same way as his mother. And that's when we find out that Melba did indeed try to kill Claire and her father by poisoning. She used something of the dead guy that she found to poison their. She learned about germs and bacteria from Claire and used that to try to kill them.
Oh wow, so she poisoned them with a bacteria, like just
Mm-hmm.
some random dead person bacteria.
Mm-hmm. I
Oh, that's
think Claire
gross. Come on.
suspects it. I think Claire suspects it was meningitis. So yeah. So but here's where in the book, Melva, um, Claire Claire gets sick in November. Melva says she's pregnant in May and she's 6 months pregnant. So Roger figures out there's no way. Like even if she said it happened again, she would have gotten pregnant in November. And Roger's like, there's no way. Like maybe Jamie would have done it once. There's no way he would have continued it and been able to keep lying to Claire. So here's the thing. In the book, she tries to kill Claire before she gets pregnant and just tries to find someone to take responsibility. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like her reason for poisoning Claire, like her desperate say she's desperate to find a father for her kid. That desperation's not there when she tries to kill her. But in the TV series, that's why last episode I was like, how pregnant is she? Because Brianna is a couple months pregnant and doesn't look pregnant at all. And Mel was like, oh yeah, I'm pregnant like a month ago. And she's seven 7.5 months along when she dies. So the reason that matters is because big spoiler number. What spoiler is this? 4?
4, yeah, 3, 4, yeah.
So, oh, actually, here's another spoiler. Claire's like, I don't know why Tom would do this. And Jamie's like, well, he's in love with you. Oh, it's pretty obvious. Ha ha! Tom
Tom's
Christie
in
in
love
love with
with
Claire.
Claire.
Yes. And that's why he takes the blame for her.
Wow,
And it's quite
someone
obvious.
was playing the hard to get.
Yeah. So he actually shows up. I can't remember if it's book 7 or book 8. I'm kind of like reading through book 8 now, but I can't find the specific scene where he does show up again. And so we find out months later, Claire's over by Melva's grave, which is, it's not even, I don't even think it's a grave. It's just like a stone that says Melva. And Alan's there. And Alan had kind of like disappeared after all this. And so we find out that the baby was Alan's. Indeed. So if you suspected that her brother was the father, you were right. I'm not going to go into details about what he says about that relationship because it's disturbing, as you can imagine.
Read the book. Everyone,
But
just read the book, I
read the
guess.
book, or it might, I don't know how much detail they'll put on the show, but I think that's gonna happen. And now he said that the reason that she was like, when she found out she was pregnant, that she blamed um Jamie because they wanted to get they wanted him to pay her off, and they were going to move to Nova Scotia. But Tom had, I don't think Alan said their father had no idea this was going on, and Tom had said, when Tom like confessed to her murder, he said that Melva just wanted Jamie, she just wanted for like power, prestige, I don't know, whatever. So Alan wants to like, Alan has a gun, and he's like ready to kill himself, and Claire's like, there's, just go, just leave, there's been so much death, there's been so much death. He's like, no, no, I can't live. And then she hears this thunk through the air, and Ian has killed him with an arrow. Ian had heard like the whole thing, and like shoots him through the heart with an arrow. So that's the tragic tale of the Christies.
Oh, heavens. Okay. I feel like I need to go back after we're done with this and like edit in like a big like she's not kidding when she talks there's going to be spoilers here like the beginning of this video.
I really we could put it in the headline, or the title, be like,
Yeah, I'll have to do that cuz
serious spoilers. Do not watch if you don't want spoilers.
yeah,
I'm
for
even
anyone
gonna
who
say
hasn't
out.
yeah, for anyone
No,
who hasn't caught on to this, I'm doing all of this live, all these picture switchings and overlays
we're
live while
low
we're doing
tech
this.
here, people. This is
Hmm?
just something we do for fun. So, and I'll even put like in the comments, like, please to know that there are spoilers. If you're gonna comment on the spoilers, please put like spoiler, 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 because some people don't want to be spoiled. That's what I do.
Yeah, yeah. I
I
don't really go back and edit this stuff. I just do everything live here, and so I might
I
actually have
think
to go
that's
back and
pretty
do that.
obvious.
But maybe we'll yeah, might have to put that. We'll put that in the titles and the
We'll just put a
spoilers.
banner every time I'm talking about spoiler. We'll just put a big banner. It says spoiler, major
Yeah,
spoiler.
yeah. What's the word? What's spoilers in Gaelic? We'll figure that out.
Yeah.
All right,
So
let's go on to the last one.
So the last thing is there's, okay, so yeah, we're running a little long, so I'm gonna try to wrap it up real quick. So we also have, oh, so I said that that was Scotland, maybe. So I don't know if the book ends very quickly. Roger and Bree have their daughter. She has a heart defect. They decide to go back to the future because she got to have her heart defect fixed. Right before they leave, they go to Wilmington because um, Stephen Bonnet is still alive in this book, and he gets executed at the end of the book. And Bree goes to see the execution, and lo and behold, she runs into William, Jamie's son. In the book, Jamie has not told Brianna that she has a brother. She realizes because he looks exactly like Jamie. And so she's quite irate that no one told her. And Lord John's like, go away, go away. So they meet. And then while they're gone, Donner shows up at the house and is demanding gems, because this is at the point where he realizes he needs gems. I forget how he found out they have gems. I can't remember if it's a rumor. But anyway, and they're like, we don't have them. We gave them to our daughter and husband and child to go back through the stones. And him and his basically he's like with a gang of thieves. He's much more of a jerk in the book than in the show. And so the ether, there's ether. Claire does, remember, the Claire huffing ether is TV only. It's not in the book, but the ether is there. And Ian wants to see it start. He lights one of Brianna's matches, and poof, house catches on fire, burns down. And then There's one more storyline that I don't think they're going to bring in because it was established way back in book 4. Real quick, I'm going to put it real quick. Years ago, the Jacobite Gold storyline, which is natural legend in Scotland, if you didn't know. Um, Dougal, Hector Cameron, who was Jocasta's husband, and I think it's a Grant. I forget. Malcolm Grant, I think, all come and they're supposed to split this gold. And it turns out that Archbug was Malcolm Grant's servant, I guess, back 30 years ago, whenever this happened. And Jocasta still has the gold. She has it in Hector Cameron's mausoleum. I felt like I assumed that they spent all the. I know they have the gold because it's in the wagon when they leave after Culloden when Morna dies.
Oh, I remember. Yeah, I remember that scene. Yeah.
Yeah, but I assumed they spent it all on like buying the plantation and everything. But apparently in the book she still has it and it disappears. And it turns out that Archbug like stole it back because he thinks it still belongs to the king. And he hid it under their house. And so when the house burns down, they
Under
realize,
Jamie's house, under
oh,
Jamie and Claire's big house.
yes. So, and then that carries into season 7. I'm not even going to get into that. So I don't know if they're going to bring that story. Since I don't know if they're going to bring that storyline in, I'm not going to go too much into it. But Donner obviously dies. His companions die. And Jamie and Claire. Oh, Jamie says, Claire's like, what do we do now? And Jamie's like, oh, we'll go to Scotland and pick up my printing press. You know, like it's going to Walmart.
Yeah, just put it on
So,
his back and just, carry it over.
yeah. So apparently he still has his printing press from Edinburgh. He's going to go get the printing press. Apparently there was someone keeping an eye on it, and he's going to come back with it, with this printing press. So that means, book 7, books, like the first part of book 7, it's just like, it's them trying to get to Scotland, basically. Because, of course, it's not like taking a direct flight, or even a connector flight. You got to go to a seaport, which is either Wilmington, Savannah, Charleston, maybe even Philadelphia, Boston. You got to find a boat that's actually going to Scotland, or not even Scotland. You might have to go to France and then take a boat from France over to Scotland, So they get entangled in all these military battles, and then William's in the military because John Gray's in the military, and that's what he did. So there's like all these near misses. Jamie almost sees William, but it's a near miss, and Jamie gets his finger cut off because he keeps breaking it. So Claire just amputates it, and I don't think they're gonna do that because I don't think they're gonna have Sam Hewen wearing a green thing over his finger to edit it out every scene. So, and then but I did see a backstage photo of scene 7, or season 7, where with Sam Hewitt and Katrina Balfe on a boat. So they are on a boat sometime in season 7. Of course, how they
more
filmed,
boat scenes. That's what we're all
right?
looking for. More boat scenes. Yes, we get it.
So,
Boats suck back then. We get it.
well, and especially because Jamie's not going to go on a boat unless he absolutely has to because he has seasickness so bad. But of course, they film in blocks, so they could take a boat in the beginning and at the end, but they're going to film it. They're going to film it like 2 days in a row because they're not going to like boat scene and then wait weeks and then film another boat scene unless they have to re-film something because they have to fix something. So at some point they are on a boat in season 7. So, 50 minutes.
That was a hefty episode there.
Oh, you mean this episode? Like,
yes, I mean what we're filming right now. Yes, this, not like 606. I mean, us. This was hefty.
Well, that's what I'm saying, though. There's so, like, I mean, when I told you, like, what happens in the books, and that's probably what's going to happen in a season, I mean, that's a lot. And I don't know how they're going to fit that all in.
Yeah, you're right. So it makes sense that they might trim a lot of it out, or ignore it completely, or edit something so that it fits in with the times they have available on the show.
Right. If they would cut out that Lizzie storyline, I'd be okay with that. But they did make it a point that she had a malaria attack, and the Beardsleys were there to rub the ointment on her. So I think that's gonna occur. Um,
Yeah, they
yeah,
did. They
I
set
think
they
that.
set all these up. They set all these plot lines up, and yeah, I don't know. They can't possibly wrap them all up in 2 episodes.
But I think they might. I think that might, if it ends on a cliffhanger, I think it might end with them trying to rescue Claire again. I don't know. It depends on what that scene is with the Indians on the beach.
Yeah,
Because if they really wanted to end the cliffhanger, I would think that they would end it with them separating Jamie and Claire and being like, "Oh my God, what's gonna happen to Claire?" You know.
right. But
So.
if Claire is already, if that jail walking scene with her touching the hand is Claire and someone else, or maybe it's her being led into jail rather than out of jail.
Mhm. And if it's gonna go that far, they're not gonna. I don't think they're gonna end it without knowing what actually happened to Melba.
Right.
Mhm.
I think we learned. I think we learned what happens to. Well, I don't know now. Ooh, oh, these are good questions. I don't know. I don't know. I'm dead honest here. I don't know. What they're gonna bring in.
Mhm. So yeah. So the next 2 episodes, the next episode on Sunday, and then the finale whenever that may be.
So
So.
we'll do our usual episode after 607, and then if
Mhm.
there's a week break, we'll try and sprinkle in something else, and then 608 season finale.
Maybe I'll do the. I have like a whole episode on who's worse, Leary or Melva. I mean, really. I mean, you know, they both tried to kill Claire. They both wanted Jamie. They're around the same age. I don't know. Who's
Yeah, yeah.
worse?
Good discussion. We could have a good discussion over that.
Oh, these are the things I think about.
I know. I know.
All right, so let's wrap up. It's getting late. It was a long week.
All right. That sounds good. So thanks everyone for tuning in again, and stick with us for 607.
All right, and if you enjoyed this video and you're new, think about subscribing. We have 37. So, and it was 37 more than we thought we'd have. So, have
All
a
right.
good
That's
night.
awesome. We're almost halfway to triple digits. That's crazy.
We're almost to half 100. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks everyone. Bye.